An average person makes around one choice every 2 minutes, considering that he sleeps for around 7 hours, 200 decisions per hour, and 35,000 choices every day. In every decision we make that is not impulsive, we weigh the pros and the cons, but sometimes we still end up making the wrong decision. Now imagine how many of them might be harmful and incorrect. Around 300,000, 30,000, 2,112 people are sitting locked up in prison in India, with one of the most common reasons being illegal drugs. Drugs supply people with money through illegal trade and transport. Many get fooled easily by the monetary incentive and end up in prison or jail, but only if they get caught. The drug suppliers or transporters believe they can get away with it, and that they have to make sure they survive one day at a time. What they don't understand is that they have a huge risk when they perhaps could find a job where they earn slightly smaller amounts of money, but they still don't risk their life with it. The average income for drug dealers is around $24,000 a year, but it can be lost within no time, and it would have no value if you're locked up in a prison cell, would it? The torture from sticks and isolation is a huge risk. You could even end up being locked in prison for the rest of your life under harsh circumstances. I'm pretty sure an incentive, whether monetary or not, has made you do the wrong thing at least once, if not more. Ever since this COVID period has started, my parents have stopped me from going horse riding. I trouble them every day asking whether I could go or not. I love riding horses so much, and I have a huge love for horses and many other animals. I also miss my favorite horse, Winston. On one Saturday evening, my father explained the risk-reward system to me. He said I was young, and I had my whole life ahead of me. If I went riding maybe 1 year later, what difference would it make? He also gave me an incentive, which was a holiday if everything had cleared up by December. After weighing the risk-reward balance, I decided not to go. If we remember the risk-reward balance and use incentives correctly, we can always stay on the right track.
Risks and rewards both have a way to be dealt with, considering only either of them could lead to big problems. Sara talked about criminals being sent to jail for drugs, even when they know that dealing with drugs is a risk. Those criminals only consider the reward being that they would earn money, but they forget to consider the risk being more powerful than the reward. Throughout our daily life, we make a bunch of decisions, either small or big. Even the tiniest decisions like ice cream or cake during winter have risks and rewards. I prefer ice cream over cake, and getting to eat ice cream is like a reward for me. But eating ice cream in winter is unhealthy and could affect my health, making it a risk. Well, this is just a tiny decision, but we all make way greater decisions every day. An example of a greater decision could be, imagine it's your best friend's birthday and she's invited you over, but her society has over 20 cases and it's a great risk of you going there. What would you do? Would you take the risk of going to your best friend's house, which has loads of COVID cases, but enjoy at your friend's house? Or not take the risk of going there, but miss out on the fun? Risks and rewards are part of your daily life. The decision made by you should be made by considering both the risk and the reward.
The example Vidhi gave is a true decision I had to make. Vidhi's birthday was near and her building had many COVID cases. My building is COVID-free and so are the neighboring buildings. Vidhi said I could go to her house whenever I want, but the problem is the COVID cases that are in her building. The risk of catching the infectious virus haunts all of us these days. If I caught it, my 89-year-old grandmother that lives with me would be at great risk, and I would also have to undergo 14 days of lockdown. If I went and followed all the safety precautions necessary, there is still a chance that I would catch it, as scientists are still not sure about the real cure and safety measures that work. WHO believes that masks reduce 50% of the risk only. My mother also encouraged me against not going, so I took my decision. I missed out on the fun, but I could still be there with her online.
If it's still in your mind, then it's worth taking a risk, said Paulo Coelho. However, today, risk-taking is an important and necessary behavior. Taking a risk to achieve your goal or to overcome your fear requires a lot of courage. No matter what the outcome will be, we grow more confident and resilient. To be a go-getter, one has to overcome all their fears, just to achieve their one simple goal. Being a risk taker takes a lot of time, patience, and thought. It takes long enough for one to overcome their fears and to be called a risk taker. You can't be in a hurry to become a risk taker. It's not necessary that you will overcome your fear quickly. It takes a lot of time, patience, and a calm mind. Lastly, you need to put in a lot of thought while you're being a risk taker. Being a risk taker is a lot more than just achieving your dreams. It is about overcoming your fear. When I was small, and even now, I was extremely scared of heights. Even the tiniest of jumps filled my body with goosebumps. But as I grew up, I had to overcome my fear. I had support from my family and friends, and soon I was able to overcome my tiny fear of heights. So, as I was saying, risk taking requires a lot of thought. You have to ask yourself, is it worth taking the risk? Risk takers are bold, and this courage is shown and is endearing. When everyone else backs off, the risk takers are willing to stay in. This makes risk takers great leaders.
Even I have taken unnecessary risks and I deeply regret them. On my way to school, I was petting a stray cat. She was cuddled on Vidhi's lap and I was petting her. Then I didn't realize what happened, but I ended up with a bleeding hand. I was not sure if it was a bite or a scratch. Vidhi and I quickly decided not to tell anyone so I wouldn't be sent home, and we ran up to class. During the break, we thoroughly researched about scratches and bites from cats and realized it would be necessary to put some soframycin. After lying to the nurse that I scratched it against a wall, we got away and nobody found out about it until the night. In the night when I started coughing a lot, I got really scared because I'd read about this disease that comes from cat scratches, and it said that cough was one of the symptoms. So I thought that the risk of not telling anyone would be that I could get really sick and I could probably die. So I told my mom about it and I got many tetanus injections, but I think if I'd gotten them earlier, it would have been much safer, even though I didn't. But I still had to get the injections. So the only reward I got was receiving a day of school. So I could have gone like the next day, the next year, anytime, but instead what I did was, I risked my life to get rabies, which was very deadly.
There are certain steps that you need to follow to become a risk taker. You have to first identify what you want to achieve. There has to be a reason you're willing to take a risk. Let me give you a personal example. I do horse riding in Mahalakshmi Racecourse, ARC. Every time I ride, I think of what will happen if I fall off the horse. I'm extremely scared of falling off, but I still go for riding as I love horse riding. And I want to overcome my fear, and that's what I want to achieve. Secondly, you should have a list of all the lessons that you have learned. As soon as my riding lessons end, I use time and think of all the lessons that I learned in that ride. I think of all my mistakes and make sure that I don't make them again. Thirdly, make a plan of action. The plan of action that I made is very simple. While I'm riding, I give my best and forget about falling, and I just think about being the best at it. Now, you're only 2 steps away from your goal. It's finally time for you to use all your thoughts and decide whether the risk is worth taking. Is the reward higher than the risk? Think of it all and evaluate all your outcome. And lastly, just go for it. If you're sure about being a risk taker, then just go for it. Don't put second thoughts on it, as your dreams are worth achieving. To conclude, we would like to end by saying that great risks come with great rewards. There are certain steps that you need to follow to become a risk taker. You have to first identify what you want to achieve. There has to be a reason you're willing to take a risk. Let me give you a
And rewards do not come without risks.